Hi, my name is Gloria Robert. Today we are discussing the topic cell reactions to its environment. Objectives of lesson. As the lesson progresses, the learners should be able to 1. Define the term irritability. 2. Define the term stimulus. 3. Mention the two types of stimulus. 4. Enumerate the two types of response. 5. Give at least 3 differences between the types of response. And 6. Mention at least 3 organisms and their organelles of movement. So what is irritability? Irritability is the ability of organisms to respond to internal and external stimulus. Irritability is also called sensitivity. Now, a stimulus is any change in the external or internal environmental condition of an organism which can bring about a reaction or response. Simply put, any change in the environment of an organism that can bring out a reaction in an organism is said to be a stimulus. Response is the term used for the reactions of an organism to a stimulus. Now, response to stimulus is fast in animals but very slow in plants. Sensitivity or irritability helps organisms to avoid danger and survive in their environment. That is why if an animal such as you touches any hot surface, what happens? You withdraw your hand automatically. This one helps to protect your skin from being damaged. Types of stimulus. We have 2 types of stimulus. The first one is called external stimulus. This stimulus occurs outside the body of an organism to bring about a response. So any change in the environment outside of an organism that can bring about a reaction is an external stimulus. So we can have changes such as change in light intensity, which we represent as photo here. We can also have change in temperature, which can also be called to be thermal change. We have change in gravity, which can be called geo. We have change in touch or touch, stimulus of touch, which can be called tigmo. We have stimulus of water, which can be called hydro. And of course, stimulus of chemical substances such as salt, which can be said to be what? Chemo. So you should be able to know the difference between all of these stimulus. Now the second one here is number 2, internal stimulus, which occurs within the body of an organism to bring about a response. Though there are certain chemicals inside the body of an organism known as hormones. These hormones can bring about a change in an organism, causing a particular response in that organism. Now, types of response. We have 3 types of response. The first one is called tactic or tropism. Now, this takes place in animals in which the whole or the entire body of the organism moves or responds to a particular stimulus. Now, it is directional. The meaning of this is that it is positive if the organism moves towards the source of the stimulus, and it is negative if the organism moves away from the source of the stimulus. For example, an organism sees light and it moves towards the light. That is positive. It sees light and it moves away from the light. That is negative. So we can have stimulus such as thermotaxis, we can have phototactic, and so on. Here we have images representing tactic response to stimulus. The first one here is showing an earthworm moving away from salt. Salt is a chemical. Okay, so that should be what? Chemotatic response. Because the earthworm is moving away, it is negative, so we call it negative chemotatic response. Now, positive response means the organism is moving towards the stimulus. Negative means the organism moving away from the stimulus. Here we also have another kind of response in turtle. Turtles the eggs of turtles are laid on land but very close to source of water. As soon as this turtle hatches, it automatically moves towards the water. That is positive response. And because it is water, the stimulus is water, we call it hydro. So we call such positive hydrostatic response. Number 2 is tropic or tropism. This takes place in plants whereby a part of the plant moves or responds in directional movement to a stimulus. Now don't forget the meaning of directional. It is positive if the plant or the part of the plant moves towards the stimulus, and negative if the part of the plant moves away from the source of stimulus. So we can have stimulus such as thermotropic, chemotropism, geotropism, and so on. Now here are images showing different kinds of tropic response. We have the first one, tropism. Okay, here we are seeing the roots of a plant moving downward in response to gravity, so we call it positive geotropic. Now the shoot is moving away from gravity, so we call it what? Negative geotropic response. We also have hydrotropism. In the first image here, we have a plant in a moist soil. The second, we have a plant in a dry soil, but very close to a source of water. Now the root of the first plant grows vertically downward, okay, showing that there is water all over the soil, so no obvious response. But in the second one, because the soil is dry and the plant needs water, it tends to bend towards the water because it needs the water. Yes, good. That is positive hydrotropism. And the last one is phototropism. You see, in the second image, we see the plant bending towards source of light. Why? Because the plant needs light. So definitely the place where it is found, the light can only come in through a very small hole. So it tends to bend towards the light. Yes, positive phototropism. Now the third one is nastic or nastism. This also occurs in plants of which a part of the plant moves or responds in a non-directional movement to a stimulus. So there is nothing like moving towards or away from a stimulus. Now examples are the folding of mimosa leaves when touched. When you touch a mimosa leaf, the leaf will fold up automatically. Now opening of the morning glory flower when exposed to high light, especially during the day. Another example is the closing of the flamboyant flowers at low light intensity. So these are represented with these images here. So we have photonastic movement, whereby during the day the plant bloom and open up, but at night it closes up. We have thigmonastic movement in a carnivorous plant. When an insect touches the plant, what happens? It automatically closes up. So that is thigmonastic movement. And the third one here, we also see a flower. During the petal will close during the day, but at night it opens up. Right, good. Now let's look at differences between the types of response. We have 3 responses, don't forget: tactic response, tropic response, and nastic. Now in terms of stimulus, the stimulus of tactic is unilateral. In tropic it is what? Unilateral, but in nastic it is general or diffuse. In terms of body parts that respond to the stimulus, in tactic, the whole or the entire body moves towards or away, okay, responds to the stimulus. But in tropic, only parts of the plant, and in nastic, only parts of the organism. Okay, in terms of direction, tactic is directional. That means it moves towards or away from the stimulus. In tropic, it is directional. It moves towards or away from the stimulus. But in nastic, it is non-directional. In terms of the organisms involved, tactic takes place in animals, tropic takes place in plants, nastic takes place also in plants. In terms of speed in responding to the stimulus, now it is very fast in tactic, it is slow in tropic, and of course very fast also in nastic. These help organisms, especially animals, to avoid dangers. Now number 6, in terms of movement, tactic response to stimulus is not growth. It's not a growth movement. It does not ensure growth. It does not make the animal to grow. Okay, but in tropic response, it makes the plant to grow. In nastic, it also ensures that the plants grow. So it's a growth movement. All right. Right now we are going to be looking at experiments showing the root is positively geotropic. What are the materials or apparatus that will be needed for this experiment? We need bean seedlings. These are young beans plants. We have pins. We need beakers. We also need an instrument known as clinostats. Now, what are the procedures or the method involved in carrying out this experiment? The step 1 is to get a beaker and attach a flat cork to the end of this beaker. This is for you to have a surface to pin the beans to, the bean seedlings to. Now, step 2 is to pin your bean seedlings with straight plumo and radicle to the cork, okay, as we can see in setup A. Now, what is plumo and what is radicle? The plume is the part of a seed that grows into a shoot, while the radicle is the part of the seed that grows into a shoot, into a root. Yes, the part of a seed that grows into a root. Plume, shoot, radicle, root. Now step 3. Attach a flat cork to the end of another beaker and fix to a clinoster horizontally, as you can see in setup B now. Now pin 3 bean seedling with straight plume and radicle to the cork attached to the beaker as in the setup B. Now allow the clinoster to rotate equally for uniform stimulus of gravity. In this kind of situation, there will be no effect of gravity on the plant. Now step 6. Place the two setup in a uniformly lit room for a few days. Uniformly lit room means sunlight for the both setup. Okay, what will be observed at the end of these few days? Now setup A will show that the radicle grew downward in response to gravity, and so we call it what? Good, geotropism. While in setup B, the radicle will grow horizontally. Why? Because there is no gravity to bring about a response. So a response. The rotating clinoster prevents the effect of gravity. So if the root or the radicle is growing downward, good, you should know that the plume will be growing upward. So plume is negative, radicle is positive. So in conclusion, we can say root is positively geotropic. Finally, we are going to be looking at movement. Okay, what is movement? This is the ability of organism to change position from one place to another. You're standing in A and you move to point B. Okay, that is movement. Organisms move to search for food. They can move to secure space. They can move to avoid enemies or dangers. They can move to secure their mates. Okay, they can also move in response to stimulus. Okay, we have what we call cyclosis. Cyclosis is a continuous and circular movement of the protoplasm of a cell. Now, in the lesson on cell, we said that the living part of a cell is known as protoplasm, and it is made up of the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So the circular movement of this protoplasm in protists such as amoeba is said to be what? Cyclosis. It is also known as cytoplasmic streaming, and it occurs in protozoa like amoeba, paramecium, and so on. It uses the principle of gel cell conversion of the cytoplasm. Now, organelles for movement are those structures that helps organism to move. Okay. Now, in amoeba, we have what we call the pseudopodia, also known as the phosphates. This pseudopodia is what they use for movement. In paramecium, we have what we call cilia. They use their cilia for movement. In euglena, they use what we call flagella, singular flagellum. In chlamydomonas, they use flagella as well. And in sperm cell, they also use their flagella. You, as human being, you use your legs. All right. So, okay, I think before I conclude this class, I want to tell you that plants growth is apical. The meaning is that growth occurs at the tip of plants, such as the tip of the shoot and the tip of the root. This is because they are made up of what we call meristematic cells. These cells are also rich in hormones known as auxin. Auxin's hormone are known as growth hormone, which ensures that this plant grows at the tip of the shoot and the root. So just take note, the growth hormone in plant is called, yes, auxin. Alright, here we are, student activities. It's time for you to test your understanding of this topic, your mastery. You must be a master of this topic. Okay, so take your time, go through the questions, and at the end, I want to believe you'll be able to answer them all. But if you have any challenge, go back to the video, listen, watch it again, and at the end, I know you'll be able to tackle all the questions. So we have the answers to the student activity. It's time for you to mark yourself quickly. Yes, like I will always say, 100% for you. So I hope you have 100%. Okay, at this time I want to say thank you for joining me in this class. But don't forget, subscribe to my video channel, YouTube channel, view my videos, put your comments online, and I'll be ready to answer you. Thank you for joining me in this class. Have a wonderful time.